So we may not all live on a yellow submarine or be able to make purple rain or even be smooth criminals. But we are Sideline Sports, and this is the Pundit's Pundit. I am your moderator, Denel Snipes. To my right, well, I guess that would be to your right since you're watching the screen, obviously, is the architect of the South Florida Tribune. He is the captain and the co-pilot of the Sports Exchange, which you will see after this, immediately after this telecast. This is Scott, the Morgan City Morganrath, and then right below, coming right back on screen, he kind of does this in and out thing at the beginning all the time. He's the architect of the Pundit's Pundit, this show, Jacob Christner, and this is the Pundit's Pundit. How you gentlemen doing?
Well, not bad, not bad. I do it because I keep losing sound. I got to reset.
Okay. You got to kind of get the sound in check. I get that. Scotty, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I had a pretty good week. Our first couple of shows, we brought for the 108 Stitches baseball talk. We brought Baseball Hall of Fame sports writer Tom Gage of the Detroit News, and then yesterday I had the former MLB catcher Barry Foote on the baseball show. So we had Fire Up Michigan with Tommy, and then last night Barry, the former Major League player. So gonna have another great edition of the Sports Exchange tonight, and then I get a couple more tomorrow night and rest of the week. So be busy, but I feel a little bit more relaxed these days since I've been able to stay home for a little while. It'll get hectic again in April, but I'm enjoying my time here at home in March anyway. So,
and I got to meet a Super Bowl winner, Torrance Brown from the New Orleans Saints, and got to see he'll eventually be watching Sideline Sports himself. I've told him all about it. So good guy too. Good guy.
Awesome. Most definitely. I know you were thinking, hey, Pundit Views, you could bring them on. I'm sure there's going to be a pretty interesting episode.
I'll work on that, no question.
Well, let me tell you, I got a show equivalent to what Jacob has called No Limits, and I had a young guy that was at National Sports Media Association, Spencer Tomset, was on too. And what Jacob and I are doing, this kid's great. I'm telling you, he's the head of the chapter at the University of Alabama. But this guy here has pipes for a voice. And, I like what Jacob is doing called the GMTA. He's got Pundit Views, I got No Limits. But the whole idea is to have one-on-one interviews and get to know somebody in depth. And I think that's so cool about both of our shows.
Sure.
Absolutely. Nothing like a great one-on-one because, sometimes you can see like the other side of somebody that people have never seen before. Not sitting here saying it grossly dark or anything like that, but people tend to find out things that, they may not have known previously.
Right.
One-on-one interviews will never get old. Well, before we get started, just want to direct everyone's attention below to the bottom of the screen, the bottom ticker moving from right to left. That is, you can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We also are on Twitch and LinkedIn as well. So if you're watching us on one of those platforms, just know that you can watch us from the other ones as well. Hit the like button for this episode, but more importantly, hit the subscribe button to Sideline Sports, because as you've seen in the beautiful intro video that we showed in the beginning, it's more than just this show. It's Pundit Views, it's the Gauntlet, it's Sideline Sports Show, it's the Sports Arena, it's the Unfiltered Truth, Ball Don't Lie, Cold Hard Truth, you name it, we got it. Confidential, which is coming up after Sports Exchange tonight. We'll have a great show for you. So, like I said, we're for the people, the best sports domain outside of that four-letter organization that we're not going to name. We are Sideline Sports, so most definitely subscribe. And
not even outside, we're better.
Right, outright better. Dare I say it? We're outright better.
We're better. Sorry, we don't give scripts to people saying which side you got to take. We don't get all that stuff, and we don't apologize.
Exactly. And so on to our first topic of the evening. And that is, can you be cool and lose? The legacy of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, when I first saw this topic, my immediate thought was the early 90s when, and we've talked about this. This was a previous Pundit topic. Actually, this is a while back before you got on, Scott. And we talked about the Deion Sanders and MC Hammer combo of the early 90s and how flashy they were and how, Deion was kind of, living through Hammer's music, and Hammer was kind of living through Deion's athleticism and play on the field. It was just outright great. Like, what a time to be alive if you were from Atlanta at that time period. You had a man who actually is the only athlete on planet Earth to have played in both a Super Bowl and a World Series, and in back-to-back years, mind you. Actually, the same calendar year.
Right.
You know, this was a dude who was he talked a lot, but he could back it up. And then at the same time period, you had like one of the most popular rappers of the 1980s and early 90s, you know. But it hasn't exactly led to a level of success. A division title at best, if that, you know, maybe a wild card, but nothing really coming to fruition. Then you go and look at the 1998 Falcons, and they were flashy within their own right. Jamal Anderson had the Dirty Bird. Everyone was doing the Dirty Bird, right? It was like the hottest, like end zone celebration in the nation. You know, they go on to the Super Bowl to face the Broncos, and they got demolished in Elway's final game.
Well, let me tell you this. Ready? That was the first Super Bowl I covered, Super Bowl 33. And I talked to John Elway the day after, and that was my first Super Bowl. I was in awe of the experience. That would be the first of 4 Super Bowls in person for me. So Super Bowl 33, if people wonder where I get my lucky number 33, that's part of it, as well as other things that are related to 33. But I remember that Falcons team real well. I believe you had Dan Reeves, who was the coach of that team. I'm trying to remember the quarterback too.
Chris
Chandler.
Yeah.
Chris Chandler. That's right. So it was a pretty interesting game. But when you're covering your first Super Bowl and with the Atlanta Falcons and Broncos, I remember it all too well.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. You never forget your first. I know Super Bowl 33 definitely holds a special place in your heart. Everybody remembers, you know, their first coverage of something huge, obviously, you know. But, you know, and then we fast forward to 2016. No, it's not exactly any, you know, I mean, yeah, you still have rap sensations in Atlanta and whatnot. Atlanta's always just going to, and Jacob, you live there, so I'm sure you know you've seen it, you know.
18 years now.
You know, Atlanta is a flashy city within its own right, you know, like, period. So anything from like rap to entertainment, which rap falls in that, you know, the sports, like you name it, Atlanta is just like that type of city. But when it comes to the Falcons, it just hasn't led to a level of success. So, Jacob, I know this was yours.
Yep.
So I'm gonna let you kick this one off. Why do you believe it has not led to a level of success, and what are your overall thoughts about this?
Well, I'm not sure, but I will bring up a Dan Reeves story real fast. I actually met him some years ago. You know what I mean? I met Dan Reeves some years ago. See, and this goes back to when I was a kid, I saw Dan Reeves versus Mike Ditka in a couple of games. You know what I'm saying? Like they coached against each other. You got to remember they were teammates. But it's like I saw him in a couple of games, and I'm like, I was thinking, oh, okay, Mike Ditka's back is this wide. You know what I'm saying? That's a big dude. And, I mean, he's just everything. I'm just thinking, okay, he could snap. You're just thinking as a kid, oh, he'd snap Dan Reeves in half. I meet Dan Reeves. His hand's this wide. I double what you see right here.
Didn't Reeves play tight end?
Yeah. His hand's this wide. His shoulders are this. And I'm like, how much bigger was Mike Ditka if I thought that?
Right.
These men are superhuman, is what I'm saying. You know, because that's what I was saying. It's like these are big boys. They're just a different breed. You know, football players by itself. I mean, Dan Reeves was in his late 60s when I met him. So I mean, when his hands are that wide, his shoulders that big, his arms that big, and I'm like, and he's in the late 60s. I'm like, how big would he have been as a football player?
Well, I mean, shoot, look at Ric Flair, for example. Flair in his like late 50s to 60s, he was still kind of diesel.
He's still diesel.
Yeah.
Before he went to the hospital, he was powerlifting 425 pounds at 69 years old.
And he had such an underrated physique because he wasn't known as a bodybuilder type like a Hogan or, you know. Yeah. But no, absolutely. Like these, like Bill Parcells was a big dude too. You know,
who?
Bill Parcells. These larger than life coaches. We've talked about a John Thompson and how he was 6'10". You know, so I agree with you. Like, you know, it's like you see these dudes in person. It's like, wow, like, and you play tight end, like, and you're the same size.
Before I go into my point on the Atlanta Falcons, I tried on Kevin Butler's Super Bowl ring once. Tried on his Super Bowl ring. I mean, it's this big on my finger. It's this big on my finger. He's a kicker.
He's a kicker.
And that tells you how big these guys are. But anyway, to bring this thing about the Falcons. The reason I brought this up because they've had 3-4 different eras where the coolest. I mean, and the thing is, a cool Atlanta Falcons is a cool league. Let's just be honest. One of the first time they were cool, the 77 Falcons with
Steve Barkowski.
Yep,
Steve Barkowski. Yep.
The Grit Splits. He was on and by the way, he was Peachtree Bart, by the way. And and it's those things. The 77, the Grit Splits, 125 points given up in 14 games, and they still only went 7-7. Still went only 7. And how bad is your offense to do that? And and then they had Kim McQuilkin, who is like 2-16 or something, some craziness. They had a terrible football career, and then he becomes this executive at Cartoon Network and does a billion other things. So that just tells you something, you know. But they had that. Then you had the 90s. You have Deion. But see, Atlanta was brilliant in their marketing on that. You had Deion Sanders and Andre Rison with MC Hammer. Then for the white population, you had Travis Tritt with Jerry Glanville.
Yeah.
And it's like you had everything. you had them for the north side of Atlanta. You had them for the south side of Atlanta.
Yep.
It's like people came on. They went onto the sidelines. They were cool. It's like they did things like they would get interceptions. Then they would lateral the ball back, and the game was over, and they'd be doing that anyway, putting the game at risk. And they would still do these because they were having fun.
Yes.
And they changed the uniforms to the black, which is the coolest. To this day, the coolest uniforms.
Oh, man. Those unis are in my top 10 all time.
Oh, no, forget it. They're number 1 because they had those silver pants.
Yeah.
They had those silver pants that just looked awesome. You had, the biggest things I can't put the Bears because they never changed theirs. They never. True. It's like they put orange. That's about the extent of it. Then, you got that. But then, guess what you got? 3 out of 4 years losing, and then your best year's 10-6 with 1 playoff win.
Yeah, and against the Cowboys won that game. Go ahead.
Yeah. But it's like, it was New Orleans they beat. But no, But no, this is the thing I say with this is, Atlanta's a cool city. It's a cool city, and yet the last era where you could have real stars and they're acting like it was that era. It's like you don't get Kevin Durant asking to go to Atlanta. You don't get LeBron James. I'm talking about basketball. Guess what? Shohei Ohtani is closer to the Chicago Cubs than he is the Atlanta Braves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Mike Trout the same way. You're seeing this, and it's like there's something with that. Then you had 1998, but that was a moment, and they kind of made an upset. Then you had Vic, but then they had no defense.
Right.
Then it's like the thing about it is the biggest thing is that you have to ask yourself, what does the Falcons franchise do? What do they do to lose these people? Because here's the thing. If they won regularly, Deion is welcoming in Michael Vick and retiring. Goodbye in Atlanta. There's no question about it.
He never wins a ring in Dallas or San Fran.
Yeah. Atlanta. They made Atlanta the coolest city. If they're winning regularly and they're getting into Super Bowls, he's there. But it's like Atlanta steps on their own feet every time. Finally, as a city, they're not. Braves won the University of Georgia. They've gotten theirs. But it's like you get the Hawks, you get the Falcons, you can't get stars. But yet most of those same stars have a house here.
Mm-hmm.
So what is these teams? I would love to be able to be inside of the GM's office to find out what this franchise is doing to scare these stars away. Because they have houses here.
Yeah.
It's like they have houses here. It's like I've seen Cody Rhodes' house. He lives in Marietta. I've seen the old Chris. I've seen not Chrisley's. I've seen the old Croy Bierman house. Mm-hmm. I've seen that house before. I've seen they're there, but what is this team doing to run them off? It's one of the coolest cities to live, but not to play. I just want to know what they're doing.
And and another ironic part about the whole Dion and MC Hammer thing.
Yeah.
You know how Stanley Burrell even got the name MC Hammer, right?
What's that?
He named himself after Hammer and Hank Aaron, another Atlanta
Oh,
Brave.
okay. Yeah.
But I want to swing it over to Scott, and I want to ask this question: even though, because they're popular, and that no one can take away,
Right.
even though they haven't had a great level of success, you still think the NFL needs the Atlanta Falcons?
Well, of course they do. Number one, they need a big southern market.
Of course.
Absolutely. You got to have the TV market and the size of the city. It's a metropolitan city. So let me address this topic in a couple different ways. Okay. Number one, can you be cool and lose? Maybe, but I don't think cool and losing really belong in the same sentence. Okay. It'd be like me saying you're going to win ugly or lose pretty. I mean, think about it that way.
Yeah.
Item number one. Item number two, I'll never forget the time when the Georgia Dome first opened up. Okay, and that was the first time I really had done a major project there. So I go over to the Atlanta Falcons old training camp area out in Sewanee, Georgia. I think they had a place out in Sewanee before the people were there. I bump into a friend of mine named Mike Fratello. Okay.
That's cool.
Mike Fratello. Yeah. I mean, I used to see him at the Pistons games all the time at the Palace, and I didn't know where to stay. So Mike told me, I got a couple places for you to go. So he steers me over to Buckhead, which everybody knows is in Atlanta is one of the hottest areas. And I found a place. Mike was really helpful. Tell them I sent you and they'll take care of you. And they did. So, but Mike's a good guy. And, again, you meet a lot of people when you've been around it a while. But here's the thing. Okay. When we talk about Deion Sanders, I think he's a diva. I hate the guy. I really, truly hate this guy. In a lot of ways, anytime a guy goes out there and says, okay, that to the Ford family in Detroit that owns a Ford Motor Company, you couldn't afford my salary, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, Deion, well, that's okay. The Lions, so you better not take me. That's okay. The Lions did all right when they chose Barry Sanders instead of Deion Sanders. How did that work out? Now, if you do want to talk about a cool Atlanta Falcon, I was there for the first game ever with the New York Jets and the Atlanta Falcons, and Jerry Glanville does happen to be from Metro Detroit. Here's a guy that could be classified as cool, okay? But I'm going to take it a step further. I'm covering a Detroit Lions game at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. One of my favorite stories, and boy, you made it easy for me to tell you tonight about this story. So one of my close friends is the sports editor for the Detroit News named Joe Falls. And by the way, I don't know if the name jogs you or it doesn't jog you, but for whatever it's worth, he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame as a writer. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, he is. I knew a lot of people that from my hometown made it to the Hall, and Joe was one of them. So I'll never forget the time that Joe and because I was sitting in the press box at Three Rivers with Joe. Okay. I said, Joe, I'm going to give you a scoop, but you can't tell nobody about it. And you want to talk about a big first-class poker face. This was it. Younger, by the way. So, I have a real strong gut feeling, okay, that Elvis Grbac is going to be taken by the Atlanta Falcons. My sources have told me that I believe it's going to happen. So, Joe, I'm telling you as a friend, this is your story angle. Just make sure it doesn't get out to the rest of them. Otherwise, they're going to blow it. So he puts his arm around me. You're really sure about this? I said, I'll tell you why I'm sure about this. Okay. Number one, Jerry Glanville went ahead and left tickets to a game out in Memphis when Presley was there and he didn't pick him up. So here's the whole thing. So that they're going to take Elvis Grbac instead. And, Joe laughed so hard.
Wow.
And not believe you did this. So, Joe, our business is filled with humor. I love you very much. And he's a guy who's like a mentor, and he took me under his wing anytime I had questions. And he loved it. He said, boy, you have the greatest poker face. And he was just laughing so hard. He said, that's a good one, Scotty. So, but I guess I go back to the Jerry Glanville, and I've seen Jerry quite a few times. And to me, In fact, when I wanted a one-on-one interview that was the day after the Falcons game, Jerry said, "Hey, remember me from this?" "Oh yeah." Hey, we go into another room back in the Georgia Domes. All the time you want. Then I bumped in over to Green Bay Airport and we talked there for a little bit. So I guess when I define the word cool, I don't really define the word cool and losing to me in the same sentence, because I consider it like a moral victory, and I don't believe in moral victory. So take it for whatever it's worth, but that's my 2 cents on the subject.
Absolutely. The one thing about Jerry Glanville, the reason they did have losing for 3 out of 4 years was he was such a gambler. They called Ron Rivera Riverboat Ron, but Jerry Glanville, he left Dion, Charles Dimry, those guys for dead every play. And just the idea that Dion had that many interceptions shows you how good he was, because he was going for an essentially his own version of the Grits Blitz. Each and every time he was leaving everybody one-on-one so he can go run everybody in. Go ahead.
If my memory serves me correctly, wasn't Jeff George the quarterback of that team?
No, it was Chris Miller.
Oh,
Chris Miller.
What, even with Glanville? I don't remember. Okay.
Right. It might have been Jeff George at a certain time, but I'm talking about Chris Miller, one of the big, you know what I'm saying? It's like.
No, I'm talking about when Jerry played. Or coach. I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
we all know.
Jeff George had an arm with. Jeff George had $1 million arm and a 10-cent brain.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm well aware of that. But I also know that Jerry Glanville was not part of the Packers. We know how that worked out. But
it took me a very, very long time, and I'll say this. Very long time to make this my home, truly. Very long. And it's only been in the last couple of years I'll be saying this. But a lot of it came because a lot of it started when I became an Uber driver full time.
Oh, yeah.
And I have driven just as many miles in Uber in the north end of Atlanta with all the wealthy houses as I have in the south end of Atlanta with all the stuff. I have been everywhere. I have met Bernard King. And I got to meet him, and I've met and Joel Embiid was one of my last, but it's not the last Uber ride. And it's all those you meet all. This is why I get mad at Atlanta. There's Joel Embiid. He's working out in Atlanta. I took him to his workout place. He's not here. This is my point I'm making. He's a star, and he's not here. I take him to his place. He's not here. What are these franchises doing, both Atlanta, both Falcons and the Hawks? What are they doing? They're living here.
Yeah.
Right.
They're living here. What do they do? Because this is a great. Why is the city practically New York, and the franchise practically
New York?
Quincy.
I don't know.
I mean, it's practically Quincy, and it's like, what do they do? And I would love to know that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've driven through Atlanta millions of times. It seems like every time I go to Detroit, 75 is a direct route. And I've learned when to catch Atlanta traffic and when not to. Sometimes I drive the midnight ride of Scott Morganrath, no, not Paul Revere, okay? You
were around then, weren't you?
What's that?
You were around then, weren't you?
Oh, I get around good, my friend. You only knew. But no, I know Atlanta. I've done some projects there. It's a pretty good town. I mean, I'm very happy in my neck of the woods in southern Florida. I'll make no problem.
Yeah. But that was the thing. But just to say that was the thing with Jerry Glanville, is the reason they had that was he gambled so much. He didn't. Yeah. He was an addictive gambler. It's like they call it Riverboat Ron, but he picks his battles. Jerry ran it so much. It was fun. And I'll tell you this, he'd get stars if it was this day and age. Right. He'd get stars in Atlanta Bills this day and age because the game is fun, which is what we brought up with the whole Justin Fields, which everybody wants to have fun, which drives me nuts in a way without winning. But Jerry Glanville in the era, let's say like Justin Fields or whatever, fun. Yeah. He had fun. He did fun things. That's what this era. Jerry Glanville would be huge in this era of YouTube clips.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he might even be. How are you doing with that TikTok?
Oh, not too bad. I backed off a little because my Michael Irvin keeps growing. That Michael Irvin one keeps growing, so then nothing else gets watched. So I'm waiting for that to simmer down. Yeah.
And then before you go to the next
I'm
one,
at
yeah.
about 10,700 viewers right now on that one. So I'm waiting for that to simmer down. Then I'm going to start again.
Okay, I was just curious. I know you were
Yeah.
riding it for a little while. I wasn't sure.
That Michael Irvin one got very popular.
I could hardly tell.
Well, we do have to move on to our next topic, and that is the recent news of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar selling all of his memorabilia. He gave a total of $2.8 million to the Skyhook Foundation, and this was getting kids
Into STEM.
Interested in the STEM. Yeah.
It is. His whole thing is to get inner city kids and other kids into science, technology, education, math, STEM.
Stem cell research.
He is getting into it, and especially inner city kids and everything. And I mean, I do. This is what I say all the time. I know what my political philosophy is. Everybody goes on YouTube. No, I'm very shy on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? I'm very shy on there. No kidding. But they know. But this is what I also say. It doesn't matter what your side is. You do something this good. And it's like, I will never, and it's like, I'm not a LeBron James fan overall. The biggest thing, there's a few things. I think he's one of the greatest, but there's a few things that scald me. But he does give to the inner city youth. I'm not a Kaepernick fan. He's given backpacks and a bunch of books to kids.
Yep.
It's like, you don't have to like them, but you have to give the point that they're doing good, especially in a world where the money keeps going down in these schools. And when I say this to people all the time, I'm a school choice guy. But you want to know what school choice means?
What's that?
Choice to homeschool, choice to private school, choice to public. People have choices. That mean, when people think of school choice, there are one sides that think, oh, we need to choose just to do that one thing and shut down the others. No, people have choices. People would choose public schools because they feel more comfortable. So if they make that choice, then you need to get money. There needs to be money there, and there's not as much. So someone like Kareem selling his memorabilia and giving money for those STEM. So I don't know how long the money will last, but it's a huge help. It gets kids interested in science, math, technology, little girls, little boys.
Yes, and maybe that's all the intent was for him to give it that spark, Who knows how long it is going to last. And getting them, and because let's face it, the advent of social media and just today's society in general has placed education on the back burner. And what we're seeing here is an example of a former athlete who has the resources that's actually given, because we say it all the time. Hey, we need some of these big players to start speaking up for and doing for some of the little people who don't have a voice, And this is really great on him because he's essentially helped bring education back, and he's letting them know that, hey, there is a way through education, and it starts here. I'm getting them interested in STEM, putting his money toward it. He's got the Skyhook Foundation and whatnot. It's still rolling strong. One thing you always have to respect about a Kaepernick, LeBron James, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is their philanthropy. You can't go wrong. I want to swing it over to Scott and your thoughts about this, about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and him donating $2.8 million to the Skyhook Foundation.
Well, let me make a reference to former Detroit Tigers outfielder Kirk Gibson, who sold off his memorabilia for a positive cause, too. He had done that. More power to him. The only thing I'll say about Kareem is, number one, he is a great player, and he knows he's going to take the memorabilia with him when he dies anyways. But so that has nothing to do with it. But the $2.8 million, that just says a lot about the guy's character. Not only was he a great player, but he's a great human being. I never met the guy before. I think the closest I came to him was when I was in a San Francisco airport. We were on opposite sides of the road. I don't like to run up to people or nothing like that. But I saw him there, and I've seen him play against the Pistons there, but he was so mobbed by a lot of the media in the locker room, and I had other people that I was talking to as well. So anybody that can sell off his memorabilia like he's doing, let alone give $2.8 million to a Skyhook Foundation, he's okay in my book.
What did Kirk Gibson give it off to, by the way?
I don't remember. I cannot remember it. But I do remember him saying that I've had it, I've enjoyed it for so long. I would rather sell it so somebody else can enjoy it as well. And, we can't take it with them. But the gesture, Jacob, and Denzel, to me, is just good enough to know that these individuals are more than just stars, okay? But they're
Right.
really good people. I think that's the one thing that can't get lost sight of in this whole situation.
See, and
One
bring
thing,
it
one
up.
thing that would really, real quick, one thing that I would really like to see is more and more of today's athletes doing the same thing. Because don't get me wrong, the 2.8 million is fantastic, right? You know, but the kids, they more or less see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as someone my grandparents used to watch. You know,
exactly.
if we
Denzel, you
could
know what? Let
see,
me say this,
if we
partner.
could see it. Mhm.
That's a pipe dream. If you think that today's athletes are going to do anything, don't hold your breath. I know where your heart's at. I know where your head's at. I'm not
I'm
holding
just
my
putting it
breath.
out there. No, and I get it. You know, just put it out there.
Okay.
If the athletes that they watch, a Trey Young, a Luka, a Kyrie, a Durant, if they do more of this, you know, maybe just maybe you'll get more kids interested in education because they don't know Kareem, but they know Luka. They don't know Magic, but they know Trey. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. But don't hold your breath anyways.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not that.
I got you.
I mean, you're
And
talking about a different bird here with today's athletes. They figure, I mean, I've never seen more drama in my life in sports, okay, than I have these days. And I'm glad I'm getting older, okay, and that my lifespan here is getting shorter, and how long I'll be in the business. It's just, it is what it is. I'm sorry. to
you got
interrupt
40
you
more
again.
years.
I hope so. But I'm just not holding my breath. I mean, today's athlete is a very self-centered athlete. They try to get attention on social media. That's all they are. They're just individuals, and that's it. Now, every now and then you have a rare bird like you have with Kareem, and there might be a few other ones out there, but there aren't enough athletes that'll do it versus the ones that won't.
Well,
Right.
the thing about it, the biggest thing with this is I'm bringing up Kaepernick again here for the deal with this. I brought up. I remember I told you the one thing about Pundit is we're going to have a fairness, whether I agree with some of their philosophies or
Right.
not. You got to be fair. He did do a ton of that. But this is the thing. I'm saying this. How many times I brought up Tim Tebow on an episode before, and what he's done for the he's done for the children's hospitals in the Philippines, and he's done for his Night to Shine Foundation.
Right.
And he's done all that for mentally disabled kids. He's done those things. Amazing work. Kaepernick doing this for inner city kids for schools could be the story, but because the media is so slipshod and chaotic, his story has to keep coming back to him saying how racist his family was, or there was a problematic, and then there's the story again. But I have to go, and I'm saying I have to go deep into any kind of research to find what he's done for $250,000 for giving backpacks, books, all that kind of stuff like that. I have to go deep. I have to go to that stuff. I have to say Colin Kaepernick, the charity, whatever. I have to do that. I have to say it those ways. If I say Colin Kaepernick, problematic. You know that
Right.
problem. Here's the problem. It's like, for one thing, in my thing, that is terrible because you don't do. It's the same as I say with Aaron Rodgers. You don't screw with family. So I despise Kaepernick for that. But this is where the media is. It's like maybe it's because he wanted to get his name out there or whatever, but they have to hit the chaos at all times. And it's like we could know more about what he does there and stuff like that. And it's like, and the thing is, maybe it's his own fault. Maybe he wouldn't be as hated if people did see those things. But he is chaotic. He does terrible thing. He did a terrible thing going after his family like that. But the media also eats it up, and he took advantage.
Yeah, and it just
Wow.
goes, it alludes to the just how people are nowadays. Like
I miss the good old days, man. I'm telling you, guys would have lived in.
Well, here's the thing. It was simpler. It was simpler. It's like we watched. Okay, I'll just say it. You and I know this. You watch Dallas. You're waiting the next week. You don't have a binge. You do have a thing and stuff like that. But you also had a dream a little bit. You kind of lived through that moment. You would be that rich and you can be able to do all that. Now you try to be that rich. You have to do it for yourself because people absolutely excoriate you if you want to be rich or anything like that. They call you, they do that. And it's like, there was a simpler thing to that. I've always said there's been two different economies. I call it this is my terms. They are the GM economy and the Las Vegas economy. GM economy is all the plants around with the houses around everybody, everybody made their money and they stayed there 30, 40 years and they paid off their houses, paid off their cars, got their kids through school, did all the things. The kids might go to the place and all that stuff. And the money just went around. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about with Detroit. Oh, yeah. Then now you have the Las Vegas economy, which started around the 80s. And you have the Las Vegas economy. And it's all gambling. It's all Jerry Glanville. When everything booms, it really booms. And when it busts, you've got the bank crisis we're having right now. And and guess what? We're going to have 50 more booms and 50 more busts before we die. And that's just the thing, because there's no way to get out now. You know what I'm saying? So that's just the thing of where we're at in our world. It was just a simpler time back in that time. It's what you're talking about, Scott.
Yeah.
It's up and down.
Yeah, well, again, you know what, Jacob? No disrespect to you guys. I really liked it back then. Now it's just so more complicated with the emergence of social media. And one thing gets out there 1 second later, it's all over the place. Called viral. My goodness, I'm telling you.
But at the same time, go ahead.
What's that?
I was just gonna say, but even your predecessors would tell you guys, this is no shock. United States has always been a seesaw economy.
Right.
Yeah. But
it's always been a seesaw economy.
Sure. But you're right. It's always been a seesaw economy, but it felt a lot simpler when there was more into the you're talking to a capitalist-minded person, so it's not like I'm hating how capitalism would run. I'm saying it's just more of a gambling economy now.
It is.
Yeah. It's more of a gambling economy. It's just always going to be that way. But that was the biggest thing. Is like when you've lived in a time that was a little bit simpler, you kind of would wish to be able to have that, but you can't have it anymore because advertising is all that now. Then paper publications will never come back. So you have to have that. So it's just wishful thinking to have that again. So here's the thing: if people want to avoid the whole cancel culture, I'll tell you how you avoid cancel culture. You quit caring. You become Don Rickles and you don't care. You become Eminem and you don't care. Once enough people don't care, cancel culture dies.
Well, Jacob, though, if you're going to talk about a gambling economy, let me take it to another extreme if you really want me to. Once upon a time, Atlantic City and Vegas are the only places you can gamble. Now you gamble all over the place. You really can. You have the Indian reservations and now gambling. So, even though Vegas is big and Atlantic City, I don't know where that one's at, but, you go to every area, you don't have to travel across the country to gamble. And some people are addicted to the casinos because, they're always dreaming for that big payday and all of a sudden you can do it. So, back in the old days here, you go to Vegas and Indian tribes and, that's another animal when you talk about gambling economy. That takes it to a different level.
Yeah, no question.
Absolutely. Well, we do have to move on to our next topic. We got about 10 minutes or so left. And that is, so this one here actually got added on today. So Roger Sali growing golf in Uganda. I've seen the clips of this, and I think it's actually a pretty good thing. Just like now they have something outside of like a soccer, right? Or being a running track or something like that. I think it's great. Okay, but introducing a sport to a new region is always like tough, But seemingly he's getting it started. He's planted a seed, and it's been coming along. I don't expect Ugandans to be avid golfers in a year or even 3 years from now, but it's still something, And this guy does deserve a lot of credit, Jacob.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. What is it about even keeled guys named Roger, like Roger Federer? It's like they just even keeled and cool about it. You know what I mean? But Roger Sali, what he's doing, this is for the world. it's like the reason I never got irritated with LIV the way everybody wanted to. For one thing, the media told us to, which I don't listen to them. The reason was there's one reason that people are mad at LIV. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's because Trump is involved. But let's just be completely honest. But the thing is, LIV was needed because the average age of a normal golf fan with the PGA Tour is about 68 years old. And those people die in about 10, 12 years. You're going to lose everybody. You got to get younger people around. Okay, so you can get United States. The people around the United States, maybe certain levels of wherever, and maybe even a little bit of the Middle East, you get LIV. But to get it all over the world, you need a Roger Solly. You need a kid like this who becomes a caddy master, and he wants to bring it over to everybody. Then you get kids around the world. You get kids around the world that might want to play on the tour one day. They might want to go to Europe and play on the European tours. They might want to get all those. It's like and the biggest thing about golf is it's expensive to start here, but you can get a couple of. You got to remember all these other countries. There's a reason all these other countries destroy the United States in tennis and destroy it in soccer and destroy them in all this. There's a reason. It's because it's like, for instance, a Rafael Nadal started with a busted up wood racket, and until he got the technique right, his uncle wouldn't let him go onto the rackets they were using. They started on a beat up court with clay that you would trip on. Mm-hmm. We have our kids, and I'm not going to blast on rich families with the rich kids. I'm not going to do that because who knows what I would have one day, you know. But you'll have rich kids that get the very best of everything right away. So they don't have the same grind. They don't have the same grind. They have the same everything. They don't earn their way to that nice, beautiful court. Rafael Nadal. So then you get soccer. It's the same way. They'll be kicking around a bunch of rags with a hard ball, and rags around it. That's their soccer ball. And then
it's the exact reason why at one point in time, particularly in the 90s, I would even go as far back as saying the 70s, the best soccer players in the world came from like the back alleys and the barrios of Brazil, of Colombia and whatnot. It's because soccer is literally all they had. That's all they had to do if they weren't helping around the house or anything like that. So when you spend that many years, your youth, right? And like all you doing, if you're not going to school or Medellin, Colombia was like the murder capital of the world at one point. So ducking bullets is on that list too, but they're playing soccer. Pablo Escobar actually, when he went to prison, he had a soccer field out in front of his cell, and he would invite teams to come and play so that he could watch them and everything. You get these kids, and that's all they do. So when they get 21, 22 years old, oh man, it's an automatic spot on the national team. And you're probably already a top 20 in the world.
And what I was bringing up with that is when you are from those poor areas, you are playing with with the equipment you made. So then you've earned the very best. Where kids in the United States, a lot of them are wealthy. Good for them. And let me just say that right now. Good for them. I would hope to be able to give my future kids the best. I would hope to be able to do it myself, but I would also hope to be able to let them know the grind too. I can't tell the future, but I wish I could because I would see. But the biggest thing about it is when when you get this, you get let's just say Uganda now, and they've got they're making their own six of their own little club and just doing chip shots and doing all that stuff. You're going to see a bunch of good players because they played with subpar things that they had to make themselves. And there's another grind that you have to make. And it's beautiful to be able to see that. And you'll see more of that with other sports now. This world is getting smaller. This world's getting smaller. And what do you think about it, Scott?
Well, here's the thing. Okay. The sports we're talking about, soccer is not an expensive startup sport at all. It's a ball, right? Basketball, the same thing, right? Just a ball. Okay. I remember baseball, they would play stickball, right? In golf, when you compare to some of these other sports like hockey, baseball, and a lot of things in our country, you have to have a little bit of money in your pocket. You can't play them. So, I could see golf being pretty good over there. You take a golf ball and you just hit it as far as you can, and it gets them thinking about the question. The only thing I wonder It's how many golf courses that they have there. Do they have any instructors to get it rolling? But I like the idea. I think it's pretty neat. Anytime you can expand a sport like that, live is for another day. I realize that what they're doing there, that's irrelevant. But you can grow golf in countries like Uganda, more power to them. But it really comes down to any interest in a sport, depends on how much it costs to get involved. And again, the sports I just alluded to, basketball, not a big deal, okay? Ball, throw it in the basket, bango, all right? Baseball, we've seen stick ball. So,
oh, yeah. Oh, no, I know what you're saying, that it's not expensive to start, but like you say, it's a ball. You can kick it around. But what I mean by it is in the United States, it's all the leagues, all the uniforms, all the stuff that costs. That's what I was saying, where you go to the places, you're kind of stitching everything up. Well,
I get that. Yeah, listen, I totally understand. You got to remember just recently, okay, the Detroit Tigers signed a kid from Nicaragua after he struck out 3 hitters, and they brought him, and now he's to a minor league contract. So you can find good players anywhere. You really can.
I saw that, and I was going to make that, but I was going to make that also, and that was a thought process, but I thought this was even cooler. So, there's a lot of stories.
Yeah, but my point is, anytime you're talking about a third world country, I guess is what Uganda is, right? I don't even know.
Yeah, it is.
Right, as well as Nicaragua, I believe, too. So it's inspiring to see stories or long shots have an opportunity to do well, potentially in our country. And so, yeah, you don't know when your next golfing prospect is going to come out of Uganda. But I think it's a good first step to grow in the sport, and more power to them. So.
Well, this is a different. Well, one thing before we go on to the next topic, this is a different world now. It's like the one thing that, I don't look at it like the way people say, make America great again. I don't look at it as an insult. I just look at it as unrealistic. Right. It's like, America's always going to have its own version of greatness, but it's unrealistic to the way that they're talking about it. They talk about the 70s and 80s or whatever. And it's unrealistic because when the years that you're talking about, I'm going to give it the example of the pilot of the Little House on the Prairie way back when. It's like, Grandpa will never see you again, while they're going off into the into the wilderness and whatever. They're going like 400 miles, and it takes 2 months. And it's like now you take 400 miles, it's a day, and then you've got a tablet. Yeah. If any of us go to India tomorrow, I can call you from there. I just have to watch for time zones. It's a different world, and we just have to. And the money is in the world, and that's just what it is. It's not. I don't. People will use it as an insult because it's a political way of saying it. To me, it's unrealistic. It's like America will have its own greatness, but other countries can have their own greatness in their own way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got about a couple of minutes before we wrap up, and then we got to get Scott over to the Scott Exchange. Jacob, you're going to be over there as well.
Yep.
So the one topic we didn't get to, we just push that one there next week because I know that's going to be a pretty good topic. So just real quick, and just taking a look back to December of 1980, Howard Cosell announces on a live Monday Night Football the murder of John Lennon. And the reason why I brought this up is so Howard Cosell is regarded as one of the great announcers, probably the greatest of his generation, right? If you don't have him as his greatest, like you say, Scott, of all time.
In whose eyes? Yours? To me, I think he's a pig.
Oh, okay. Well, some people think he's a pig.
Well, I can tell you right now that I had a run-in with him when I was covering a Monday Night Football game over at the Orange Bowl, and Cosell was such a jerk. But I guess the consolation prize was O.J. Simpson that worked out. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I got you. So pretty much on a Monday Night Football game, it was the Patriots at the Dolphins, and this was right at toward the end, or it was supposed to be the end of the game. The Patriots were going to attempt a go-ahead field goal late, quite possibly the game-winning field goal even. And the news had come over that John Lennon was viciously shot by a fan in New York City, and he was dead on arrival. And so it just really gets you to thinking that when there is something that is bigger than sports, and and for him to get that announcement, and for him to get that news and have to announce it. Now I don't know if he was ordered to announce it on the Monday Night Football telecast, or if he did it just out of his own because of what the Beatles meant to the world, But yeah, most definitely for him to have to announce that news and whatnot. Definitely a moment that doesn't get talked about as much. Jake, real quick, your thoughts on this?
Yeah. See, I remember those days when I was on there. I was a whole 2 years old, and I was climbing out of the crib, escaping from my crib as always. Probably had a sippy cup somewhere, and I was walking over to the TV. No, I'm just kidding. But the biggest thing about it, we brought this up earlier about the simpler part of everything. It's like, I'll bring this reference up, Jay or Denzel. Either way, your name's but one or the other. It's like, I'll bring this up either way. We remember the times when Ultimate Warrior came out to rescue Hulk Hogan, and the music came. We didn't know he was coming. So it was WrestleMania 8. That was the most fun thing we could see in our lives. It's like that music starts. No one saw that coming. Zero. So it's like, no one saw this coming. There's something to be said about the shock. You're not expecting. That's the simpler part that we miss now, because even with this, today started the official free agency. But yet 4 days ago, we saw that. We completely saw that Ryan Poles just went to town 4 days ago. That's like, this is what they've done all their whole careers, but we don't know this because it don't go through the papers. It doesn't get the thing. In one case, it's fun to be able to debate all this with our friends and all of us. In the other case, there's a simpler thing though. Oh, wow. Coming home to the paper, hold it up. So there was something to that. So people, the shock and awe and turning over and everything like that brought the amount of ratings up. There's something different about it. It's just like, like that. You're not going to get a shock and awe like that. You just don't, because it's too hard to keep. It's too hard to keep a secret.
It is, and especially in a time period like that, because you got to think, like JFK gets shot. They're interrupting the news, or they're interrupting the program and whatnot. Exactly, the typewriter sound and whatnot. You know what I mean? But I want to swing it over to Scott, and I don't know where if you were watching this game or where you were when you heard the announcement and whatnot.
I heard the announcement. I was old enough to watch that. I think the worst thing that ever happened to Monday Night Football is they put it on ESPN and took it off ABC. Number one. I mean, that's where it belongs. It doesn't belong at cable, number one. Howard Cosell was just in the right place at the right time when that announcement came. And whether it's a popular or unpopular, it's immaterial. He happened to be there. I mean, who was in the right place in the right time when O.J. Simpson had that freeway chase and they interrupted. So it's not uncommon for big events to be interrupted. But Howard Cosell's signature moment was that call, no problem. I don't really care any more than Al Michaels being the signature voice for, the Miracle on Ice. I mean, so to me, when you're in the broadcasting business, you have breaking news and somebody's got to talk about it. It just so happens the biggest idiot on the planet, and forget about what he does to younger broadcasters like me. But the point is either you liked him or you didn't like him. I just think that, to me, Howard Cosell didn't know, his sports stuff. The only thing I'll ever look positively upon with Howard Cosell is he was a great boxing commentator and announcer. That's it. He didn't know nothing about football. He really didn't. They just put him in there because he was a loud, obnoxious, expletive that I won't say. But he was a better boxing commentator, and he was a misfit for football. He really, really was. And just because you're there at a popular time to announce this, so what?
Well, the thing about it is, you said he's a better boxing commentator. That's true, but that's not saying a whole hell of a lot.
Well, exactly. So you're not calling it the GMT.
And a left, and a right, and another left.
Right.
Down goes Frazier.
Yeah, I know. But there you're falling into a GMTA moment here, Jacob. You know that, right? No, he was awful on football. And let me tell you, there were a lot of other ones that proceeded to follow him better. At that time, ABC used him. He was on there for a while, but you know what? His act gets old like a lot of them. I have more. If there's one ABC announcer that I will always idolize, and I mean always idolize, if you've ever been to Arlington Cemetery, what about Frank Reynolds during the Reagan assassination? He said, I don't care if we get it first. I want to get it right because all this misinformation was going on. And when he did that, that's the ethics of journalism. And that's why when I went to Arlington Cemetery, when I was out covering the Lions and the Redskins at the time, I visited Frank Reynolds' grave because you know what? I respect everything about the guy in terms of how we went out there and brought about his business. So,
what year did he die, by the way, Reynolds?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but
But you know something, it's like he'd probably hate this internet journalism badly now, wouldn't he?
well, he wasn't around anywhere near the internet. But boy,
No, he would hate it though now, wouldn't he?
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, but Frank Reynolds was the greatest. I mean, there are a lot of great news broadcasters before, but Frank Reynolds was, to me, when he told his people, I don't care if we get it first, get it right. And he chewed his people out when they got it wrong. And I learned from him because then I subsequently became an intern over at Channel 7 locally in South Florida, and we had the same philosophy. And a lot of that was attributed to Frank Reynolds. So
yeah.
But Howard Cosell was lucky to be there in that moment, and he was the one that called it. Other than that, I really don't even care.
But I think, and the biggest thing, I'll say this, and then we got to end the telecast. I think the biggest thing that I got out of all of this is the fact that here you have a non-sports entity and how much he meant to the world, how much impact he made to the world. A non-sports entity's death gets reported on a sports program. Right. You know, so it really, and don't get me wrong, everyone's got their thoughts about Howard Cosell. It probably was more about John Lennon than anything else, because like it was a Monday Night Football, and it's like, wow, he's announcing John Lennon just got killed, and then imagine how many people switched over to the real news station. You know,
yeah, but that's common practice. If there's a big event, sports event or not, they're going to always interrupt. I don't.
But you know, he just did it in the right area in the world because TMZ would have announced it now.
Yeah, but still, when it comes to the big heavy hitters in the news industry, you know what? Sports or no sports, they're going to go ahead.
Big three. If it's the big three, yeah.
Well, you can add Fox if you want to consider it now 4. But,
big 4, yeah.
Right, but regardless, if there's a big news story, I don't care if it's sports, they're going to put it in there. They're
going to put it out. Yeah. That is true.
Well, you know what it's called? It's called the right to know.
Yes, the right to know. That's what we learned in college. Absolutely. Yep. So on that note, we do have to end the program because we got to get Scott over to the Sports Exchange. Thanks to everybody who watched this program and anyone who's liked and subscribed to Sideline Sports. So for Scott Morganrath and Jacob Christner, I'm Denel Snipes. We will see you next week. Head on over South Florida Tribune on Facebook and and YouTube, and catch the Sports Exchange and head on back for Confidential.
Hey,
later, guys.
Yeah, Roth. Okay.
I said Morganrath. I got cotton mouth. I need some water.
Oh, don't worry, you're good. We'll make sure to get it right by next week when you come on the Sports Exchange.
There we go. All right, guys.
All right.
Night.